everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we're going to continue on with part number 2 of the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. Just before we dive right back into the gameplay, I do want to go over a couple things that I mentioned in the pinned comment from the last video that'll provide some clarification for you guys, as well as taking a look at what's called the threat track, and we're going to talk about what and how threat actually accumulates, and also show you that it's not just a random thing. It actually does have a physical representation within the board game that will then drive the threat meter forward, pushing you into threat events and potentially, if things go south, the end of the game resulting in a loss. So let's go head to the table and talk about those misses from the last video and also get more comfortable with the threat meter. So the first correction that I want to make mention of is this card right here called Resourceful. This is a skill card. It comes as part of the roll cards that were built into Legolas's deck during the solo setup. It's a Hunter 1 card. It has stars around the title, and when it has those stars around the title, this card should have been underneath Legolas's hero card. Now I want to let you guys know that during the solo setup, this was set up underneath Legolas's hero card, and somehow, magically, likely because it was maybe literally right below the skill deck, I accidentally at some point in time shuffled this card into his deck, and sometime during part number 1 before we started, this Resourceful card was in there and made some appearances throughout the last video mistakenly. So what should have happened is this card should have been in Legolas's prepared card area, and so currently we have 2 prepared cards on Legolas. I will be taking this card out of this skill deck and preparing it as it should have been in the first part because we lost out on the ability to use these abilities on the card. That will correct that and we can continue onwards. The last correction here comes into play with Aragorn and his ability. It says, when heroes scout during the rally phase, you and nearby heroes each reveal 1 additional card. Now, we might be wondering, what does nearby mean? Well, that means any hero that's in the same space as you, again, using those dividing lines as that differentiator, and anyone that's in a space next to you as well. So in this particular case, seeing as we're able to correct the second miss from part 1, because this ability could have triggered 2 times in part 1. The one that happened in the middle of the video, I can't do anything about as we've moved past that, but at the very end of part 1, we actually did our scouting and we pulled 2 cards, chose 1 to be prepped, and we also put 1 back into the skill deck. This also brings up a whole other question that might be really interesting for you guys to note. You do not have to, when scouting, prep or prepare a card. You're not forced to. You can if you'd like. You can simply take all the cards and the knowledge that you have of them and place them in the skill deck on the top or bottom as you see fit, and actually prepare none of them if you so choose, if that's going to actually help you strategically. So there are a lot of choices there, being that you are not required to prepare a card. So what's going to change here is we're going to go to Aragorn. We're going to be revealing another card in addition to the 2 that we revealed from the end of the last video, and that may impact my decision as to which one I prep and where I put the other ones in the deck. So let's deal with that right now for Aragorn, and we'll be doing the exact same thing for Legolas, as Legolas can benefit from this as well. So as you guys remember, we went ahead and we prepared this card right here. We placed the other card on top of the skill deck because it had a fate icon on it, meaning we can spend 1 of our inspiration later on knowing that we'll be able to get a success out of it. Another question that came up that has nothing to do with any corrections, that's something I just want to address, is that one individual was asking whether if you spend 1 inspiration token and you have a number of fate icons that come in after a draw off the skill deck, do all of the fate icons turn to successes? No, it's not that powerful. It's a 1-for-1 type situation with those. For every single inspiration token you spend, you can change 1 fate icon, which looks like this, to a success. So that's essentially how that works. Now, you got the skill deck over here on the left. We already know what the top card is because I put it there after we scouted last turn, so I'll just go ahead and reveal that. So these are the 2 cards that I was aware of from the end of the last video. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull a 3rd one and then make our decision, because Aragorn's ability here to allow him to reveal an additional card when scouting is very, very handy. So let's go ahead and reveal that and find out what it is. It is Undying Might. Okay, so this one says, when you test your might, you may discard this card to add 1 success. It also has a fate icon up top, which is good because I do have a lot of inspiration to spend. So this might be one worth keeping on top of the deck as well, in case I really want to pump up my successes or guarantee myself 2 subsequent successful tests in a row, or maybe if I happen to land one test that needs multiple successes, I can guarantee at least 2. Not bad. So let's just pretty much put them back the way they were. Now, when you're putting back multiple cards in the deck, you can choose to put them on the bottom or the top in any order that you choose. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip these over just like this. The honed ability one will be on top. Not that it matters, because nothing about the ability itself matters when you put them on top here. It's just the icons, if any, from the skill deck. So we're all set, ready to go. We can head over to Legolas now, reveal an extra card, and see what we can do with him. So at the end of the last episode with Legolas, we did our Scout 2, and we chose to prepare Time of Need. And we took the other card that we revealed from the skill deck and placed it back on top of the skill deck. So we're going to go ahead and pull that one back off again, so then we can make a more informed choice using now Aragorn's ability, which allows me to reveal an extra card from the skill deck when we're doing a Scout. So let's see what we get. Look at this. We got ourselves a Scout, and we have options here. So this one says, when you interact with a search or threat token, before you test, you may discard this skill to test instead your agility. That's actually really good for Legolas, as he has 4 agility. And you get to Scout 1 on top of it. That's actually really good. And then it says also, in addition, you can sprint 1, so during your turn discard to move 1 space. So 2 options there in terms of how we could potentially use that card. Plus it has the success symbol up top. So the question really becomes, what's more important for Legolas, getting a guaranteed success, or maybe going ahead and preparing this card instead of the Time of Need card? Now the Time of Need card, just to remind you, because that was the one that we had chosen in the last episode to go ahead and prepare, says when you test, if you do not reveal any successes, you may discard this skill to convert all of the fate tokens to successes. So it's kind of like giving you free inspiration, which is pretty good. And I don't have a lot of inspiration. So in that particular case, it might be worth it to actually have this one go back into the deck, just to make things better in terms of the skill checks that we might run into going forward. So maybe what I'll do is I will go ahead and have Light-Footed go on top, and I will have Undying Might go underneath, and we'll place those 2 on top of the deck. Worst case scenario, if I need to use 1 inspiration, I have it. If I happen to, when I flip this particular card, I won't need it for the very first one, but the second one, I will be able to if I need to. And of course, I can try to obtain more inspiration later on. Again, as I mentioned with Aragorn, I can put these 2 cards back in any order that I choose. And you may notice there that I've left a couple cards on the table. That's okay, because I'm putting the stack right back on top again. So nothing changed there. So really just kind of correcting, actually it's not so much a correction, but an advantage that I wasn't taken advantage of in the last episode, and now we have. Plus you'll also notice Resourceful is now prepared as it should have been in part 1, so Legolas has an additional ability that he can potentially activate and use. With that all said, we have finished the 2 major corrections that I want to talk about. One involving the miss here of not having this card on Legolas, and the other for missing Aragorn's ability. These are things that will not be happening going forward. I will definitely be remembering these as we go along, but there's one last thing I want to talk about before we begin the gameplay, and that's about the threat meter within the app. So here we are back inside of the app for Journeys in Middle-earth, and you'll notice that the threat bar or threat track is at the very top here, and will continually increase in threat as we go along. I had questions from part number 1 as to what is the calculation? How do we know what's the app is actually driving this threat meter? Is it completely random and just based on the story elements that you're going through, or is there some type of calculation that you can be aware of and use to your strategic advantage? And there are some actual legitimate numbers behind how this threat meter is moving up, so I'm going to talk about those right now. So threat in general increases during each threat step by the following amounts: 2 for each hero playing, which is the reason why the first time we saw threat increase by 4, it was because we have 2 heroes times 2, that's your 4 threat. The other ways threat is going to go up during that calculation when it hits that particular phase is 1 for each threat token on the map. So it would have gone up if I hadn't had resolved that threat token that was on the map. In other words, when you see those things, if you choose to ignore them and go towards story, maybe campaign progression, and you ignore threats, they're going to hound you later. They're going to hit your meter, and it's going to obviously drive you towards a potential loss. The other way that threat can go up is one for each unexplored tile. So the app is essentially driving you towards exploring, essentially. So in other words, right now is a perfect example. We have these 2 unexplored tiles. If I don't get to those at the end of this particular game round between my 2 characters, I'm going to be taking additional threat hits for not having explored or moved into either of these tiles. So definitely something I'm going to try to do, but the funny thing is we are way up here. So the fastest route's going to be coming along here to here to here. And as you can see here, you are allowed, as I mentioned before, to do the same action twice. So I could do movement and then movement again, which would give me 4 movement points, which would get me from here, 1, 2, 3, and that would get me into here, and Aragorn could get into here. So I could actually have both of my characters use their entire movement, which is my plan, to just book it from one side to the other side, get into those tiles to avoid threat being triggered. It seems like a decent strategy, and it's going to be a really quick first round of this particular video. So now that we have a better understanding of how threat works, we know our threat bar is currently at 10, and the threat event is going to trigger at 15. We also know that our heroes count for 2 threat each, so we have 4 threat guaranteed to go into our threat bar at the end of this round. So all we need is one more silly thing that will generate 1 threat, and we are going to push ourselves into a threat event, which does not sound good. We also learned, besides the hero totals of threat that they generate, that also unexplored tiles like these 2 right here will generate a threat each for each one that's unexplored. So that's not good. So we really do need to knock those things out and explore those to at least avoid a guaranteed threat event if we don't deal with those. So the only way to do that is to activate both of my characters, of course, one at a time, and pretty much spend their entire turn, because we are able to do the same action twice. So I'll be doing movement to burn and have them move from where they're currently located all the way down, and then from this location will be their 3rd, moving to their 4th movement point. They'll be moving into separate tiles to explore both of them. So I'm going to choose to have Aragorn go first, and we're going to have Aragorn, seeing as he's doing the best, he'll move into the biggest tile. We'll hope that that's the one that's going to have the most action. So Aragorn will begin his turn by using his first action to move, giving him 2 movement points. We'll send him here and then here. And then we're going to go ahead and use another action to gain another 2 movement points to move him from here to here. And then finally into this larger tile right here, where we'll flip over this token, head to the app, click on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on this exploration token. We're going to explore it and see what happens. The spray of these waters keeps the banks damp and muddy, perfect for preserving footprints. Discard the exploration token and gain 1 inspiration. Awesome, and I'll hit continue. We'll continue onwards. Looking down a muddy ridge, you notice what may be tracks on the shore. The way down, however, is steep, slippery, and bears no clear path. Place a search token as indicated. We will be doing that as well. A dense fog blankets the area. You sense danger within, though you see no signs of what it may be. Place a threat token as indicated. Now, this is going to cause us a problem, because as I mentioned earlier, any threat tokens left on the map are going to generate threat. So now if Legolas heads down and goes ahead to try to explore the other tile, the threat token that's currently landed just now is going to push us into that threat event. So even though we tried to kind of avoid that, it seems like it's inevitable. It's going to probably happen anyway. So we'll go ahead and continue onwards here. So the first search token is going to land right here, and we're going to have a threat token that literally lands in the exact same space as where Aragorn just moved into. The only downside of this is that he no longer has any more actions to do anything about it in terms of interacting with it. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to generate that additional threat that's going to push us into a threat event, and that could cause us some serious problems. So now we're going to actually head over to Legolas here, activate Legolas, and we really have a choice as to whether or not we want to, now knowing that we're going to go into the threat event anyway, maybe have Legolas head towards that particular treasure. If I can generate more movement, it might be doable. We'll have to take a look at his abilities to see if there's anything we can do there. Legolas actually does have an ability on his card which specifies movement. It says, once per round during your turn, you may spend 1 inspiration to move 1 space without provoking attacks. Now, we haven't talked about provoking attacks, but very simply, if there's an enemy in your space and you choose to move out of it, you provoke an attack. If you choose to interact with a token in your space when there's an enemy, you provoke an attack. How do you do that? There's a button inside the app, which is currently grayed out because I have no enemies on the board. But if you're in a space with an enemy and you do either of those 2 things, you'll click that button and tell the app that you're going to provoke an attack. You do a test, and if you if you handle that test and are still alive and you haven't been defeated, you can continue onwards doing that thing that you were trying to do, whether it's movement or interacting with a token. So what this ability is stating essentially is that during the round, you can kind of get around the movement one because Legolas is stealthy and it thematically makes sense. He can spend inspiration to move a space without provoking an attack. So, yes, you could technically, I guess, use this inspiration to gain an additional point of movement and move, but if you're not, if you're not taking the full benefit of this, and I only have 1 inspiration token, I don't see the reason to really burn this. So I'd prefer to actually use this at a time when it makes a lot more sense. So I'm not going to go ahead and have Legolas go charging after the chest. I think later on we'll see whether or not that makes sense. Instead, I'll just go and do what I originally planned, which is to explore that other tile, because I do actually want to see what options I have, and it can help me make a more informed decision going into the next round. So Legolas will go ahead and begin his turn. He's going to use 1 action to move 2 points, so of movement, 1 and then 2. And then he's going to do the same thing, another action to move another 2 points of movement. So 1 and into here for 2. Now I could technically choose to be here or here. So in order to be nearby, because I'd rather actually take advantage of that cool scout ability that Aragorn has, it makes more sense to keep my characters either in the same space or adjacent, because then both of them benefit from Aragorn's ability. It just makes sense. So let's get Legolas into this space. Now we'll go ahead, we're going to flip this token over, and we're going to go to the app and actually engage it to let them know that we've explored this tile and see what happens. Let's find out what happens. A gentle hill rises above you, sloping up to a single high perch built in an old oak. A bandit gang make use of such a lookout perch, but so might anyone hunting bandits. Discard this exploration token and gain 1 inspiration. So we'll definitely do that. Does anything else happen here? Aha, person! A short stretch of water here tumbles through rapids and over a waterfall. Several children are playing in the water. Place a person token is indicated. This is probably not the best place for kids to be playing based on these kind of thugs being around the area and things like that. So the riffraff and everything else. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and place a person token and continue onwards. High in a tree, you see a shoddy platform crafted from old lumber. The vantage point might make it easier to spot signs of the thieves. Okay. Place a search token indicated. So that sounds pretty cool. Maybe what that's going to allow us to do is to see, maybe reveal more tiles kind of in one, instead of having to just hope to see something. So that obviously seems to be that. Get up kind of high in an area and maybe that'll unveil things. The other thing you can do, guys, to know this is the app itself will have kind of a fog of war approach going on that'll give you an idea as to essentially where the game board is going to kind of branch off towards. So we know now that, like, at the end of the day, it's going to head this way. So maybe even though we're heading this way, technically we need to go up here in order to see this. Who knows? All kinds of other things. But you can also see here that the good news is we won't be so far out of the way we can actually go after this treasure chest maybe on our way out. So in terms of ignoring that when I did, maybe a smart decision. But we've got lots of different things to deal with here now. So just before we place any more tokens on the game board, I'm definitely not going to forget to grab that inspiration token for Aragorn and put that in his area. He currently has, just so you guys are aware, 4. So he's at his current maximum that he can hold, which is still good because he can use it, which is great. We're going to go ahead now and place the tokens for Legolas. So the person token, which is the children playing, are going to head up here. And we also have a search token in order to kind of see further in the distance over here. Now this is likely to get really, really interesting because we're going to likely see the threat event for the first time, which is going to be pretty cool. So let's see what happens. So we're ending our action phase for both of our heroes. Let's see what happens. The shadow deepens, though hope yet endures. Threat increases by 5 thanks to that threat token. I really tried to avoid doing this, but it happened anyway. From a nearby tree line, you hear the warble of an unfamiliar bird. Then, without further warning, arrows start whistling through the air around you. Each hero tests their agility, looking for 2 successes. Oh my gosh, good thing we scouted. We might be able to survive this, potentially. And then each hero who suffers 2 will face down damage. Oh wow, that's actually really bad. Each hero who fails suffers 2 face down damage. That's not good at all. Now the other thing I also want to make mention of, guys, you might not have seen that I didn't actually physically pick up the inspiration token off of Legolas's tile. Don't worry, I have. It's in the stock area for inspiration with Legolas. So Legolas does have 2. So hopefully this will help him survive this check. Aragorn's test is going to result in... All right, so we know the first top 2 cards off this deck because we set them up, of course, but we got 1 fate icon and we have another fate icon, which is awesome. We set these up originally, so we knew this already. One thing to note, guys, we do have this ability right here. It says before you test, you may discard this skill to test your wisdom instead. So I could have discarded it in order to pull 4, but why would I do that when I actually scouted earlier on and I knew these 2 cards? What I don't know is what's coming up next. Now things get interesting. But again, we'll be at the end of a round, so I'll be able to kind of reset things up for myself. So this works out good. I have to spend 2 inspiration tokens in order to change both of these fate icons into successes. So 2 of these tokens come off of the stack and are discarded from Aragorn, which is perfect because he's already at max anyway. Might as well use some of them. These 2 are discarded. And Aragorn basically avoids this nasty threat event that triggered, and he is no longer going to suffer 2 face down damage, which is fantastic. We'll put the discarded cards just above there, and we'll head over to Legolas and see how he does. Legolas certainly has some abilities here that I could use during this test, but I'm not going to because, again, I've scouted earlier and I know what's on top of this deck and I know that I can succeed. So let's go ahead and reveal this skill check, see how we do. Pulling 2 cards. First one is, the only thing we care about is the very top left, a success. We knew this already. And the next one should be a fate icon as we set this up earlier. Perfect. I'm going to spend 1 inspiration token in order to turn that fate into a success. And just like that, Legolas has passed his test as well. And these 2 cards that were just drawn are going to be discarded. And we will head back to the app and continue forward. Nobody took damage. And thankfully, Legolas didn't because it would have actually put him into some serious trouble. So both of our heroes were able to get past this threat event so we can continue onwards. Uh-oh, looks like we got some enemies here. Place 2 goblin scouts on the indicated space. 2 goblin scouts have appeared out of nowhere on this particular tile, right next to and in the same space as Legolas. So the 2 goblin scouts are now on the indicated space. We can continue onwards. Oh my gosh, more of them. Place 1 goblin scout on the indicated space. Now you'll notice here that this one comes with a different symbol that hasn't shown up yet, but this is what's considered a banner. And this is the first time we've seen a banner, and there are differences in banners. One of them is kind of a regular banner, and one signifies an elite banner, and this is going to keep different units that may look similar, separate in terms of activations within the app. You can see down at the below here that you've got the 1 scout, which has the banner. You'll know it's here. And the scouts we just put out, which will represent 2, are here. And of course you can click on them as well in order to determine how many are part of each of those particular sets as well. So let's go ahead now and put this goblin scout into the game. Well, that's unfortunate. Just when I thought my path heading over here towards the chest would be eventually very clear, it looks like we got a goblin scout running across the river towards us. Alright, so hopefully that is the end of the goblins. I really don't want to see any more of those guys coming out on the game board. Okay, perfect. So we're in the rally phase now. Each hero resets their deck and then scouts too. And as we remembered from the last video and the beginning of this one, I'm certainly not forgetting Aragorn's additional ability to allow an additional card when scouting. So I'm definitely going to be doing that with both Legolas and Aragorn, as now Legolas is nearby in an adjacent space. This is going to really help us when we're going up against all of these enemies. All right, Aragorn, let's go ahead and scout 2, plus 1 additional card for your awesome ability. So the first one off the top of the deck is Lead the Charge. Okay, so this is a tactic. Nice, it's got a success on it, so that's really good. It says after you attack, you may discard this skill to gain 1 inspiration and for a nearby hero to also attack. Oh wow, that's really good. That would actually work out really nicely with these goblin scouts everywhere. It's also got a strike 2 when you attack, discard to add 2 hits. So actually either way, that's a really great card for either of those two options. Again, it would be taking away from the success if I pull it and try to prepare it. So let's go ahead and pull the next one, see what we get. We got to make some choices here. Honed agility. So when you test agility, you may discard this skill to add 1 success. It's okay, but it does allow me to use 1 inspiration token to turn the fate icon into a success, so that's not bad. Something that could be good. Lastly, we have, a similar card to this one down here for Aragorn 3. It's a Strider card. So a strike 3, when you attack, discard to add hits, or guard 2, discard to prevent hits or fear for a hero in your space. This is also really interesting because we know that Legolas is in trouble, but I already have one of those guard 2 cards, so I already know I can protect Legolas for the most part. So knowing that, I guess the question then comes to be, it probably is better to focus on kind of the attack. So I think I like putting this one on top of the deck to have a guaranteed success would make the most sense when I put it back. And then I'll maybe have Honed Agility go underneath. So we'll basically put them back in this order. And of course I'm going to flip them over and put them back on top of the skill deck because I like both of those on the top. Remember, you can always choose to put some on the bottom if you want. I'm going to choose to actually go ahead and prepare Lead the Charge. I think this is going to give us a really cool ability. And this will actually push me up to a maximum of 4 prepared cards, which is the first time this has actually happened. So I'm just going to shuffle a couple of cards around here. We're going to have to change the order of things because we're going to need some room as we now are maxed out on our prepped cards. Now let's head over to Legolas and pull 3 and see what happens. So Legolas's deck has been reset. We're now going to go ahead and scout. We're going to pull 3 cards thanks to Aragorn's ability that can help me because I am nearby. So let's go ahead and flip over 3 of these and see what happens. So we got ourselves Keen Eyes. We've seen this one before. Your range attacks can target enemies 1 additional space away. Not bad. And actually this really works well because I could actually target that scout that appeared 2 spaces away from Legolas. So this could actually be really good. And it also allows me, if I want to, instead use it for strike 2. When you attack, discard to add 2 hits. This seems like a one that could be worth preparing. Again, remember, I don't have to prepare any cards at all. I could choose to actually just put them all on the top or bottom of the skill deck and be done with it. I do have 1 inspiration to spend, so I could also use it as a potential success as well, depending on how the rest of these go. Oh gosh. Okay, so I also got this Weakness Misled. This is actually perfect timing because I was hoping at some point during this video I would see these weaknesses come back up again because I wanted to talk about something strategy-wise with these that I didn't the first time. So yes, typically when you see these weaknesses you think, they're just cluttering up your deck and they're basically, you know, just a useless card essentially. Really, they are. They are messing up your skill deck, they're messing up your chance of success, but one thing you can do to mitigate it is you are allowed to actually prepare a weakness. Yes. So you can actually choose to prepare a weakness. Now, the interesting thing with that is it's going to obviously kind of start cluttering up your prepared area and reducing the amount of prepared cards you can have because you can only have 4 slots total. But it's part of the strategy in cleaning out your skill deck. So that's kind of where you have to decide, you know, is it worth it not to be preparing a useful ability in order to kind of clean up and have this card get out of the cycle as you go through the adventure. That's kind of up to you to decide. But let's continue on now and actually take a look at the 3rd card so we can make an informed decision on what we're doing here thanks to Aragorn's ability. All right, Ancient Wisdom. This one says, when you test your wisdom, you may discard this skill to add 1 success. So not exactly the one that I really wanted, to be honest. In terms of actually fighting and taking enemies down and dealing damage, it makes sense to do what we did similar with Aragorn, I think. And of course, there's a couple different ways we could go with this and maybe prep the Keen Eyes one. Again, it's going to be the ability to reach the scout from distance if I choose to use it for that, but it also has the ability, if I choose to discard it, to just basically hit someone for 2 additional hits, which is kind of nice. The Ancient Wisdom one makes sense to put on top of the deck so that we can guarantee that worst case scenario, we can turn, you know, a potential check into a success with the inspiration token. The Weakness one, I'll just toss to the bottom. Again, there is really some serious strategy involved in actually determining, you know, when to take weaknesses out of the skill deck and put them in your prepped area. But that biggest thing, as I mentioned, is they do start clogging up your prepared cards. You can only have 4 of them. And yes, you will, over the course of an adventure, gain more than just 1 weakness. So if that becomes a strategy to mitigate them, you basically get into a situation where you don't have many prepared cards. You start losing functionality of your character. So there's a balance there you're currently or constantly juggling throughout the adventure, which I think is really, really cool. So that's going to do it. They are all scouted and ready to go. We'll head back to the app now. So there we go, all our heroes are resetted, and we also have gone ahead and scouted what we scouted for 3 thanks to Aragorn. We'll continue onwards. The plan of action here is going to have Legolas to activate first, and we're going to try to take down these goblin scouts, both of the ones that are inside the same area as him, and hopefully we can take them both down because I have prepared 2 cards that allow me to do a strike 2 when attacking, which will add 2 hits, giving me a much better chance of taking them down. They are 3 HP and 1 armor each, so I just need 8 hits total, and between the 2 cards I can throw away that are prepared, that's already 4, which is enough to knock one of them out, so I really just need about 2 successes basically to guarantee that I can knock them out. And the way I've staged my deck, I should be able to swing that with the inspiration I have. So should be a guarantee based on how I set things up. So we're going to go ahead and do just that. We'll start with Legolas. We're going to go ahead and attack, and we're going to be using, based on our bow, it will be the agility. So we'll be pulling 4 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and grab 4 cards here for Legolas. So we have 1 with a fate on it. We'd like to see a success here. Okay, so good thing is I still have an inspiration to spend, so I'm looking for a success still. Uh-oh, things are getting dicey now. Come on. Oh, there you go, last one. Wow. Okay, so we got the success we need there. I'm going to use 1 inspiration, the last one Legolas has, in order to turn one of these fate icons into a success, giving me 2 successes. That is going to do, based on the great bow that I'm using to attack these orc scouts with, will give me 5 hits. So I'm going to apply 5 hits, and I'm also going to go ahead and discard Keen Eyes and Immortality. Both of these cards at the very bottom say strike 2 when you attack, discard to add 2 hits. So I'm going to discard both of them in order to get 5 plus the 4 is 9 hits, which is 1 more than what we need, but it wipes both of them out and guarantees no attack back, which is perfect. All right, so we chose to attack this Goblin Scout right here. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to make the attack, which we already have done, and it was just straight damage that we applied here, so it's going to be 9 total hits, which is going to completely wipe these guys out. The great thing is, guys, is that you can almost picture Legolas doing the dual arrow with 1 shot taking both of them down. That's the way I'm envisioning this anyway, which is pretty epic. So both these golden scouts are being taken out right now. So we're going to go ahead now and apply 9 hits to the attack, which is pretty aggressive. Remove 2 Goblin Scouts. You or a nearby hero gain 1 inspiration, and because Aragorn already has 2 left, I'm going to go ahead and give this inspiration to Legolas, so he gains back the inspiration that he spent. And just like that, we've removed 1 of the enemies off the game board, and technically, we've also saved an action here with Legolas he can use to potentially interact with this token that currently sits in his area, so we might as well go ahead and do just that. High in a tree, you see a shoddy platform crafted from old lumber. The vantage point might make it easier to spot signs of the thieves. Do you want to climb? Yes, with especially with someone like Legolas, this sounds like a good idea. And of course, that arrow also mentions that, and also references the fact that it'll cost an action. It's going to test our agility. This is great because Legolas's agility is 4 cards. So we have a pretty good chance of gaining successes, and we're trying to get as many as we can. So Legolas does gain 1 inspiration from taking out those 2 orcs as indicated by the app. We're going to head over to the game table, remove the orcs off, and we'll also go ahead and now pull for the skill check for climb. So both of these orc scouts are gone off the game board. A nice shot by Legolas, and we're now going to interact with this token, which has us going ahead and going up the ladder. Let's go ahead and reveal 4 cards off the top of Legolas's deck and hope we get enough successes to make this worthwhile. We do have 1 inspiration to spend, so that's a plus. So the first card right off the bat, look at that, light-footed, even references the fact we're even going up a ladder and he's quick and agile. Oh my gosh, there's 2 successes. And, oh, this is perfect. Now I can get potentially up to 3 successes if I spend an inspiration. Do we get lucky enough to get the next one? No. But 3 is pretty good. That's a pretty solid number. That might be enough. So I'm going to go ahead and spend that inspiration that I have on him in order to convert one of those fate icons to a success, giving us a total of 3. We'll head back to the app, input that, and see what happens. So we know we landed 3 successes. We'll go ahead and input those 3 and confirm. You find yourself in a tangle, the very branches you hoped to use instead impeding your advance. You retreat slightly, looking for a better path. Okay, so it doesn't look like we actually did it then. We do gain an inspiration, so we'll see what happens when we continue here. Yeah, so the token is still there, so we actually need more successes to succeed at this, and we still need 3 tracks. That's the whole point we're doing this, so I'm hoping by going up here this is going to help us. But we might have to start exploring these other search tokens over here, or maybe talk to the hobbits. So that is actually going to do it for Legolas's turn, and now Aragorn is going to begin. I'm pretty happy with having Aragorn actually just interact with the threat token that's currently into space to reduce one of the threat that will hit us at the end of the round here. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll use the very first action for Aragorn to interact with this threat token. We'll head back to the app, see what happens. Alright, so we're interacting with this threat token. A dense fog blankets the area. You sense danger within, though you see no signs of what it may be. So let's go ahead and search. Oh, another one that's going to test a number of successes. So a quiet settles over the area, then you hear the click of a knocked arrow and the creak of the bow being pulled back. Okay, that does not sound good. So we got to test our agility, and we'll head over there to the table to see whether or not this pans out for us. So it's obvious that somebody wants Aragorn taken out as these arrows are coming in, and we're going to see whether Aragorn is agile enough to dodge them. We're going to be using our agility to do this. We'll be grabbing 2 cards off the top, as that is my agility, which is not as high as Legolas's is at 4. Mine is just 2 with Aragorn, so that's kind of upsetting. But I do have 2 inspiration to spend, so we could potentially turn some into successes. I don't have any abilities on my cards that will help me during this check. I have already double-checked that. So let's go ahead and pull from the skill deck. The first one is a success. Perfect. So 1 is good. Can we go for 2? No, but we could spend an inspiration to turn this into a success, and I'm going to do that to avoid taking any damage. So we'll go back to the app and put in 2 and hope that's enough. So 2 successes is all I get. Here we go. You move forward slowly, but silence is difficult, and at the first mistake, your hunter releases the arrow. The shaft whispers as it passes a head span from your head, and you hear a hand span, from your head, and you hear heavy footsteps retreating away. Threat decreases by 2. That's good. So you can see now that threat actually, and we've seen this earlier, but we actually didn't have any threat for it to impact, but that's a good thing. We're going to suffer 2 face down fear though, because we're kind of scared by what just happened, and then discard this threat token. So this one has nothing that talks about negating anything, so we have to suffer this fear no matter what, and it's face down because it specifies face down. Then the threat token's gone at least. I'm going to go ahead and check because I believe Aragorn may have an ability that can help reduce this fear. We'll see. The good news is I believe that he has an ability that gives him an additional fear to his max, so he's not as shaken as most people would be. So we're going to go ahead now. Let's continue through this. It should remove the token off the map. It does. And that is the first action for Aragorn. At least he got rid of the threat. Let's head over there and see if he can somehow deal with this fear that he's been given, but I believe there's nothing we can do to negate it unless an ability specifies that we can. Yes, this is too bad because this one actually increases my fear limit by 1, which is good because my fear limit is normally 5, but this travel garb allows me to have up to 6 fear before I have to go ahead and do a last stand check, which is something I never want to have to do. But below it, it says before you suffer face down damage, you may prevent 1 of the damage. So it doesn't actually stop me from taking the fear. So I will be suffering 2 fear, and it is face down, so I don't get to know what they are. So I'm going to be taking 1 face down fear and 2 face down fear. I'm going to place these just above Aragorn's hero card, and we're all set there. We'll remove the threat token off the game board, and we'll go ahead with Aragorn's last action. So this threat token has now been removed, and I have 1 action left, and I feel like actually heading south to this search token right here. It specifies in the app that looking down a muddy ridge, you notice what may be tracks on the shore. The way down, however, is steep, slippery, and bears no clear path. Sounds like the tracks that we're after could be potentially, well, at least one of them here. Makes sense to head that direction, and I'm going to forget about the fact we have this orc scout over here just waiting to hit us, and wait for him to come to us. us and see whether or not that ends up hurting us. Now, the only downside with that strategy is that Legolas is kind of left behind and he is the one hurting the most. So this could backfire on me pretty badly, as I don't have any inspiration and my skill deck is quite depleted, and I don't think that I have too many successes left in my deck. I think I may only have one based on the 3 I've already discarded. So yikes, that could be also dangerous as well. But again, the app may specify that it goes after Aragorn, so we'll have to see how this pans out. But I'm going to go ahead and have Aragorn move 1 into this location. I can't interact with this because the action itself of movement burns my final action, and that's going to do it for the hero's turn. So we'll now go back to the app. As I mentioned earlier, I'm quite concerned about how this shadow phase is going to go down, although we're not far enough up to the next start event to worry about that yet. But shadow phases are never good. Here we go. Yep, and that's bound to happen. So we're going to move to attack Legolas or closest hero. Ugh, no. Okay, so we have to first check to see whether or not this is doable. So first off, the no target will be used in cases where you cannot execute this particular ability as it mentions here. So as of right now, it can move to and it can attack Legolas, so it's going to move into our space. So rather than jump back to the board itself, I'm going to actually move that character off screen into Legolas's space as it moves from where it's sitting currently right here, 1, and then into Legolas's space right here 2. So I'll go ahead and say it's attacking, which is unfortunate. Okay, that's not good. So a goblin lunges at you, shrieking with rage. My might is going to negate, so we're going to have to see whether or not we can negate some damage here. This could be bad. Now, this is actually a crazy check that's going to happen right now, and what's really cool is this is where the strategy of your skill deck really comes into play, because I'm down to my last 3 cards of my skill deck. So inside of this deck, knowing how we set up and prepared and did our scouting action earlier on, I know the last card is the weakness card because I put it there. So the top 2 cards above it are what I'm going to have to pull because my might is 2, and 3 of my successes are in the discard pile and none of them are prepared. So I know for a fact there's 1 success left in that deck, which means I'm going to negate 1 of the damage for sure. What I won't be negating is the other one, because the other one will likely be a fate or a blank. What's really unfortunate though, and I'm not going to go back on this because I planned to do it, but I forgot, and I'm not going to cheat in any way, shape, or form, but I did have this card prepared here that said, at the end of your turn, you may discard this skill to gain 1 inspiration or scout 1. So I was going to do this with Legolas at the end of the turn, but I didn't. And I'm not going to go ahead because more information has been revealed, and I'm not going to go back like that, change it, because I always like playing it as is to see what happens. So hey, at least we know we're going to negate 1 anyway. So that's good. So let's go ahead and reveal the cards. We should see in one of these 2 cards a success. Sure enough, there it is. There's a success right away at the beginning, and the second one, yep, there it is. So if I had had that inspiration, if I had not forgotten the resourceful, then I would have been able to block both. But unfortunately, I am silly and I forgot. So that is going to be 1 wound coming towards Legolas, and it's a face-up wound. There's no other ability on his cards that will stop this. But it does say here on his cloak, before you suffer damage or fear, you may spend 1 inspiration to prevent it. Okay, well, ironic. So we're going to go ahead now and pull that damage, and it's going to be face up. So hopefully this is not bad. I really hope it's not. Okay, good. It's just weariness. And this is actually the most generic damage card in the entire game, by the way. So there's quite a few of these in the deck, and usually they always have it being just flipped back down. So it says flip this card face down. So I'm going to put this with the rest of the damage I have. Now what's dangerous is I currently have 4 damage with Legolas, and his maximum is, I currently have 3 damage with Legolas. My maximum is 4. I really need to rest. So when I go ahead to scout later on and I prepare a card, I need to find a card that has rest on it so I can rest away some of this damage, because otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. I'm getting up to my max here. I'm going to have to do a last stand that I really don't want to do. So that is that, and we're going to head back to the app. We'll finish out what just happened there in terms of the hit and continue onwards. Leave it to a Goblin Scout to hit you when you're not looking. So there we go. The shadow deepens, though hope yet endures. Threat increases by 4. So again, because we did a really good job of mitigating all the threat on the board, including the tokens, and we didn't have anything else happen that would have raised the threat besides just our own characters counting as 2 threat each, it just goes up by 4. So that was really good that way. Not so good for Legolas at the moment. and we head into the rally phase. So we're going to do a normal, each hero resetting their deck, and then scouting 2. Great news is these guys are side by side again, so Aragorn's ability will trigger. All right, so we're going to scout 3 with Legolas to start. Here we go. See what happens. Precise strike. Okay, so this is a success. Strike 3, when you attack, discard to add 3 hits. All right, not terrible. Immortality, nice. Arrest 2, this is exactly what I needed. Now, okay, that's actually working out pretty good. So discard at the end of your turn to discard 2 face down. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. So I still have to go through a turn, not get hit back in order to actually be able to use the rest. Very interesting. Okay, well, it's possible I can get this damage off me. We'll see. And then we got Tireless. At the end of your turn, you may discard this skill to perform an action that you have not performed this turn. That's really handy. If I didn't have to get the rest, that'd actually be really useful right now. So I'm going to go ahead actually and definitely take the rest because we are hurting big time on the damage. So we're going to prep the rest for sure, or immortality for the rest is what I'm gaming for. I've got, did I say gaming for? I meant aiming for. And then we've got the success right here with a complete miss on the other one. So I'm going to take the success, which will help me when I make an attack on the goblin in my area. And then maybe the one that's blank, I will fire this to the bottom of the stack. That makes the most sense, I think. And then we'll hope to get a success on the one underneath. That's going to do it for Legolas. Let's head over to Aragorn. All right, Aragorn, let's see what you got here for your scout. So we got Strider, nice. Now, the other thing you'll notice, guys, at the bottom here is I've already got 4 prepped cards. This is the first time I think this has happened, actually, in the playthrough. So how this works, essentially, is if I choose to prep one of these cards that I pull from the 3 off the top of the deck here, again, taking advantage of Aragorn's ability, and I want to, it's when I gain the 5th card, then I can choose to discard one of the other prep cards. There isn't anywhere in the rules that state that you can actually just choose a card that's prepared and toss it. So once you've prepared it, especially things like these successes, you can't just ditch them out of your deck when you so choose, unless, of course, you're preparing a card that then replaces its spot, essentially. So there is some strategy there, too. Like, if you prepare too many successes, like I've done here, if I prepared this one and got rid of one of these ones that doesn't have a success, I'd have 3 of my 4 successes in the prepared line, which means this deck would be a heck of a lot less useful than I'd really like it to be. So that's something to think about as well. So Strider is one of the cards. We got honed ability here, or agility, sorry. We've seen this before. And then that again would be able to use my inspiration, which is a plus. And then another one. So Wanderer. After you explore a tile, you or a nearby hero may scout 1. So that's pretty handy too. So in terms of cards, do I want to get rid of any of these cards out of here? Maybe one of the successes need to go back in here. Right now, guard would be good. I should keep a guard because guard can allow me to block damage from Legolas if I can actually be in the same spot as him at some point. Strike is always good, and then this is leading the charge is amazing. Even though it's a success, it says after you attack, you may discard this skill to gain 1 inspiration and for a nearby hero to also attack. This is a huge card. I've been saving this for a really good time where we're in a crunch and we need an extra attack for free. That's huge. So I want to keep that. So see, that's where it gets tough. The ones that are successes are always the toughest ones to get rid of. The other 2, when you test your spirit, you may discard the skill to add a success. That's a little less useful. And it's too bad too. I also missed this awesome ability of Sprint 1. It says during your turn, discard to move a space. So I could have actually discarded this card to have Aragorn move a space in the last turn, which would have got him to the search token, and he would have been able to interact with it. So I definitely want to use that. So I'm not going to get rid of this. But what I'm going to probably do is I'm probably going to let this Unyielding Spirit one go, I think. So we'll put this one back. And sorry, when this one goes away, it does not go in your deck. It's discarded. So that's got to be really, really clear. I want to make sure you guys understand that the card that comes out of your prepped area that is going to be replaced by another card you prep goes in the discard pile. It does not go into your skill deck. Only if you run out of your skill deck during your round, you get to put it back in. So we got these 3 cards. I'm going to go ahead and say Exploring for Wanderer is not useful because of the fact that there's no unexplored tiles. And Hone Agility is for agility, which could be useful because we know we've been trying to do our agility. So I'm going to put that in there because that'll guarantee me an extra success. And we've been trying to do a test that uses successes for agility. So that makes sense. And then I'll put Strider, seeing as I already have one in here prepared. Definitely not able to do that again. So I'm going to put Strider on top maybe and Wanderer underneath of it. So Strider on top, Wanderer underneath, just like that. So we've got Aragorn all prepped and ready to go. So our heroes have reset their decks and they've scouted. So we'll continue onwards. action phase indeed. So now we got some choices to make. We're going to start this action phase off with Legolas, who's going to turn around, whipping around, and shoot an arrow straight at this orc using his great bow. So it'll be using his agility, which is 4. So we're going to pull 4 cards off the top. Hopefully this will pan out for us because we need all the help we can get here. So we got a success off the top. We knew that because we set that up earlier. We got another success. That's awesome. Didn't know that was coming. That's sweet. That actually is enough, I think, to kill him by itself. And then we got, look at that, 2 fate tokens. That's perfect. Okay, so that is going to allow us, based on our great bow, when you use 2 successes, you're going to gain 5 hits. So 5 hits is overkill on this thing. I do have the ability to put more damage on, but that's just silly. So this orc is going down. We're going to head to the app and input that as well. So Legolas made a successful attack on this guy right here and hit him for 5 damage. So you'll see here that the armor goes down. Just so you guys note in terms of how armor works, basically if I ever hit him for 1 armor or for 1 hit like I do here, then I'm getting into his HP. If I'd only done 2 hits and I hit apply, basically what happens is the next time I make an attack against the Goblin Scout, his armor is going to replenish, essentially. That's what's going to happen. So these types of abilities can actually cause it to go away. So basically you can use these types of abilities to actually remove armor so it doesn't replenish if you don't fully take out all the HP. So that's kind of cool, and it starts to add a lot of layers into the combat. There's also, I believe, something to do with the mystical power of some type, so maybe something to do with wizards and things like that. That also can come into play with this combat as well. But we did it, and we'll talk about that when we actually get to it, but we definitely did enough damage here with 5 hits to apply. And just so you guys know as well, it's always good to put in the exact amount of hits you did. Even if it's only 4 to kill it, it's still good to tell the app exactly how many hits you made, because there is this thing called lore in the game, and lore will be like a currency you can spend later on, and there's XP as well, and you don't want to miss out on those things. So sometimes when you do really good on a hit, you never know, you might see some lore. I haven't seen it yet, but there's no reason not to put the exact amount of hits that you actually accomplish, regardless of how much overkill it is. So there we go, and we'll apply 5 hits. Now I haven't seen any bonus lore from an attack yet, but you never know, maybe one of those bigger monsters later on down the game will go that route. So we're removing 1 Goblin Scout, which we know, and then we're going to gain an inspiration. Now I can actually give it to Aragorn, but I definitely want Legolas to have it because Aragorn already has one. So we'll give it to Legolas. And there you go, we have no enemies on the board. Finally, we're all clear. Now we can actually start focusing again on these tokens. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the one that I'm really interested in. Anything with the word tracks is definitely going towards the objective that we're trying to get. We also have you gaze up at a tangled tree, trying to determine a better path. So we can basically get up on top of a tree, which my guess would be is that's going to reveal more of the map, which seems to be spreading based on the fog of war down here to the southeast. And then we've got this treasure chest, which we've had forever and never actually interacted with yet, but maybe we'll grab it one day. But I'm really, really focused on this, and the Hobbit, of course. The Hobbits, this is interesting because there's some kids there. So not too sure whether Hobbit children are going to help us or not. We might get ourselves into some weird side quest there, but you never know. That could result in a track that we need. So hard to say. But this is guaranteed. So for Legolas right now, he currently sits in this spot. So I might as well continue to do what I was doing before with the agility, seeing as I prepped a card that'll help me, and we'll try to climb. So we're going to go ahead and do that for his second action. So here we go. We got to test our agility. So let's head back to the table, see how it pans out. So that Orc Scout did not last long. He is out of here. And we don't want to forget about the inspiration, which I'm going to place on Legolas's card as well. So we'll place that over there. He's going to have 1 inspiration, and Aragorn has 1. So Legolas now is going to interact with this token right here, which we know is doing testing his agility. And actually, no, sorry, it was Aragorn who had actually prepped a card that would be good for agility. So sorry about that. I was planning to use it for down here. Legolas, so it's not incorrect in any way. I just misspoke. It was Aragorn that had actually prepared an agility based card called Honed Ability, not Legolas. So I don't get any bonuses there. But we still get 4 cards to pull, so it should be good. Famous last words. So here we go. Okay, yep, famous last words indeed. Misled. That's not exactly what I want to see. That's a big old blank. We got Ancient Wisdom, so this could be used to burn one of my inspirations to get a success. This is not turning out so good. Come on, give me a success. There we go, 1 success. So now because I have 1, it might be worth it to spend the inspiration, seeing as we don't have any enemies on the board, to try to see if this swings things. So I'm going to go ahead and spend the 1 to convert 1 fate to a success. So we get 2 total. Looking over my cards here, I don't have anything that would help me. Time of need would be great because it allows me to convert all fate to successes if I don't reveal any successes, but I did, so I can't use that. So I think that's pretty much all I can do. Come on, Legolas, let's see if you can get up here. Pulling yourself onto the rickety structure, you gain an exceptional view of the area. Gain 1 inspiration. Looks like we did it. Nice. All right, you cast your gaze deeper into the wild. Perhaps the remaining thieves and their allies from Mount Graham are hiding in those hills. Haha. Awesome. Oh, here we go. Oh, nice. So we're placing tile 305B. So Legolas is first going to happily gain an inspiration token. Tile 305B is in position. So with the tile in place, we'll continue forward. Oh wow, even more is being revealed. 101A is now going to be added as well. We'll just continue on from here to see what happens. Oh my goodness, 304A is coming out as well. This is really getting crazy. So we're going to most likely have a whole bunch of tokens that are going to drop, unless there's more places to reveal here. Okay, there you go. So place exploration tokens across 3 different tiles, and as you can see, they're all unexplored. So we're going to put those tokens out in each of those 3 locations on the game board. So the map has certainly grown outwards. Basically where we came from was just over here on this side of the map. We came down here, now we're kind of in this pocket of the map, and now we're going to be heading over this way. So this map is becoming quite large really quick. The app instructed us to place 3 exploration tokens on the 3 new tiles that just got put into play, so I've done just that. So we placed the exploration tokens, we can continue onwards. Oh, we got a lore there. That's awesome. You compare the information you've discovered with what you already know of the region. Seeing no obvious signs of the lair, you begin to surmise where the lair may be and continue your hunt. Lore increases by 1, and we only need 2 tracks now. So we successfully did at least one of the things we needed to do, which is fantastic. And it looks like Legolas actually gets some props here for that. Surprisingly, I didn't actually think a track would come from that one, but it did, which is fantastic. And on top of having the vantage point from where he currently was, he's now able to see all of these other tiles up here, which is really cool. So we only need 2 tracks, and we're still kind of technically in Legolas's turn, so I want to go ahead now and use that card in order to rest with Legolas to get some of this damage off of him. So I'm going to go ahead and use Immortality. It says rest 2, discard at the end of your turn to discard 2 face down damage or fear, and I can choose however I want to spend those 2. I could get rid of 1 damage that's face down and 1 fear or whatever. So obviously I want to take away 2 face down damage for sure to keep myself, because that is my weakest, major stat of Legolas that could potentially force me into a last stand, which I do not want to have happen. So those 2 cards have been removed, thankfully, so I'm a little bit better in shape than I was before, but this card does get discarded. Now you might be wondering what happens with the cursed injury card and how come that one didn't get taken away. Well, the card specifically states any ones that are face down. Now the ability on this cursed injury, which really is an ability, it's more of a curse, it says if you would discard a face up damage, flip this face down instead. So the card I'm using only stated to discard face down damage, not face up. So if I ever have to do a face up damage discard, then in that case I would flip this one face down. And of course the Immortality card that I just used for my prepared area goes in my discard pile as well. So Legolas did a great job on his turn. We've removed this search token because that of course is what created all this insanity off here. And I had to rotate the board actually, so if you're wondering why the perspective has changed in terms of the angles, I've had to turn the board in order to accommodate the setup of the game, because it's kind of sprawling out in one direction. So I've turned it so that where we currently are is closer to where the camera is, gives you a better vantage point of the game board as well. So now that we've finished Legolas's turn, there's literally nothing else to do. He did his 2 actions. He took out the goblin. He basically successfully traversed up the ladder and was able to see far into the distance, plus gained a track for doing that, plus rested, all within 2 actions. Pretty impressive. So Aragorn is up now, and Aragorn really wants to grab another track because, I mean, why wouldn't we? So the app indicates looking down a muddy ridge, you notice what may be tracks on the shore. The way down, however, is steep, slippery, and bears no clear path. So we're going to be testing our agility in this one. So Aragorn's agility actually isn't all that great, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. But remember, I did prepare that card, Honed Agility, this one right here, which says when you test your agility, you may discard this skill to add 1 success. So I'm absolutely going to be doing this regardless of anything else I see from these 2 cards. Plus I have an inspiration to spend as well. In terms of any other abilities, nothing that would impact agility. So we got to pull these 2 cards to the top of the deck, which we've prepared earlier. So we know there's 1 success in there. And we also technically know there's a fate in there because we put both of these there. I just actually kind of forgot the second one was a fate. But what's great about this is I can use an inspiration token, my last one on Aragorn, to go like that, which will create 2 successes, and by discarding this prepared card, gains me a 3rd success. So we're putting 3 successes on this check. Let's head to the app. This might actually do it and gain us another track. All right, so you descend carefully, struggling to maintain your footing, but Aragorn is very sure-footed this time around, so here's hoping. Halfway down the steep slope, the mud gives way beneath you. This is not good. Keeping your footing, though, you slide down with care and come to rest beside the tracks. Yes, they are heavy and wide, large for a man's. Strange though it may be, it appears a large number of orcs have traveled through this way. Discard this search token. Awesome, so we definitely will do that. We'll continue on here. We gained another lore, which is fantastic. It says, with the clues gathered and the enemies you have faced, you begin to fear that this is no lair of exiles and lowlifes. What you are closing in on is a stronghold of the enemy. Fledgling though it may be, your fears, unfortunately, have proved true. A darker purpose and master is being served here. So our lore increased by 1. We saw that on the app there. Tracks needed has dropped down to 1. We're doing really, really good here. You can see we're still underneath that next threat event at 25 up top, and we're not even halfway. So we're doing fantastic. We just got to find out where that last track is. I'm guessing it's got to be down here somewhere. So that's probably where we're going to be heading next. And that's going to do it. So that's perfect. And Aragorn still has 1 action to do. So let's head back to the game board. We'll remove the search token that we just successfully completed. And we'll see whether we can get Aragorn maybe to move into this tile right here. All right, Aragorn, what are you going to do for your next action? One thing you're going to do is you're going to use your banner that you should have used when Aragorn went ahead and did his rest action. Because it says after you or a nearby hero, he's nearby, rests or guards, that hero gains 1 inspiration. So actually, by having the banner as the captain, Aragorn actually inspires Legolas, and Legolas is going to gain an inspiration token, which is fantastic. So Legolas now actually has 2 inspiration tokens and Aragorn has none. But that's what's really cool about being Aragorn and being or just in general being a captain, is you're going to be able to do those types of things to help other players out that you're moving along with. Now, it didn't come from a specific captain card. That one came from a banner, which I believe might be tied to Aragorn specifically, just based on the character that he is. But yes, he does provide inspiration for his other individuals as long as they're in a nearby space, in the same space, or adjacent to. All right, Aragorn, what are you going to do? Makes sense for you to just move. Head into this tile here and explore it. So let's go ahead with a move action, go 1 and 2. As soon as we move in, we get to go to the app and we get to basically flip this token over. In most cases, you gain it. All right, so let's go ahead here, click on this exploration token and confirm. Several makeshift bridges and gates have been trussed into the crumbling ruins. Discard this exploration token and gain the inspiration. Nice. So Aragorn will get an inspiration, which is perfect. A young girl is wandering the area looking lost. Place a person token is indicated. So another person, and we never ever got a chance to talk to those hobbits up there either. So as you can see when you go through this, you're not always going to be able to hit everything, especially if you're actually trying to progress the story. So if you want to, you can kind of interact with these individuals around. They might give you side quests, things to do, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's really fun to, to explore those different options, because some of them tie right directly into the main story again, which is really cool. So we'll continue on after we place this on the game board, and then our journey continues. So Aragorn's turn is complete, but we just have to put these, first off, give him an inspiration token that came off the tile and place this new person token. So Aragorn will gain this inspiration token, which is fantastic, giving him an additional 1. And we're going to place a person token as indicated by the game app, which will sit, and we need to get the right one. There's actually 3 different backs for these person tokens, so I always like finding the one that actually corresponds to the one the app is talking about, just like this. Now there's one other correction I want to make, guys. It doesn't impact gameplay whatsoever. It just actually happened when I rotated the game board around. I placed two of the original very first tiles that we were exploring in the wrong position, but it never impacted gameplay because I just spun it around and noticed it was out of position. So I've corrected it. I'll show you guys a full overview shot right now. So you may have noticed earlier on there when I actually rotated the game board around, the old areas that we originally were in, these two right here, I'd actually accidentally kind of tucked them into this spot right here. So it might have looked really clumped and stuff like that, but no worries there because we were long gone out of those areas. I've corrected them based on how the app situates them. Just when rotating the board around, they basically moved out of position. Didn't impact anything when we were ever in any of these spaces whatsoever, and this literally just happened. So I thought I'd mention it in case you were wondering, how did this sprawling thing that kind of looks like a sea turn into a gigantic land mass, is what it kind of looked like a few shots ago. So with that all said and done, we've got Aragorn here in this location, thankfully taking away one threat, which is nice. Got the person token in place. He's now in this location, but now we've actually finished everything. The only other thing I could do, technically, because it says during my turn I could throw away that card I had prepared to sprint with Aragorn if I wanted to move another space. So if I wanted to actually be in a space that's advantageous for me instead of wasting an action to get there, I could do that. And I think I'm going to, because as of right now, I have 3 prepared cards and I'd rather start getting some of them out of my prep area. So I'll go ahead and use that. It says during my turn, sprint 1. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to move myself right into this area right here so we can maybe interact with it right away in the next round, which is perfect. So that is going to end the round, and hopefully that makes a lot more sense with the map. I do apologize for that. You guys are probably wondering again how it all clumped together, but no worries there in terms of gameplay. We'll head back to the app and see what happens when we move into the fun shadow phase. So it's time for our favorite phase, the shadow phase, and that has got to be a lie. So here we go. Hopefully it doesn't throw too many bad things at us. The shadow deepens, the hope yet endures. Threat increases by 6. Again, we're doing a good job of mitigating threat, but 2 additional threats show up because we have 2 unexplored tiles. So 2 for each of our heroes, +1 is 6. I do like that you can calculate that out in advance to know whether you're going to hit the event or not, so that's fantastic. Ah, look at that! Nothing bad happens, so the app is being nice to us right now, surprisingly. No other patrols yet. I doubt that's going to continue. So each hero is going to reset their decks, and as of right now, we are so far apart that Aragorn's ability will only affect Aragorn. Aragorn can scout 3, Legolas will only be scouting 2 this time around. So let's go ahead and hit continue because we know we'll be doing that. Moving back into the action phase, let's head back to the game board and continue onwards. So before we scout with Legolas, one thing I want to make mention of is the search token that Aragorn just succeeded at, and before he actually moved into that other tile, has been removed from the game board because of course he succeeded at it. And everything for the game board in terms of his state now matches the app perfectly. So looking at Legolas here, we have, and we know he is very, very far away from Legolas, and he will only have a Scout 2 going into this particular rally phase. So we're going to be pulling 2 cards from the top and deciding what to do. So look at that, he got himself rest again. What the heck? What are the chances of that? So that's pretty good. I could use that again to get rid of the fear. I can't use it to get rid of my cursed injury though, because it only says discard 2 face down cards. I need something that can flip this cursed injury over, which I don't even know if I have. Maybe that's kind of the point of the cursed injury. Here's another card that we could potentially use. This one's Ancient Wisdom. So when you test your wisdom, you may discard this skill to add 1. I'd rather have the rest, because at the end of the day, if we ever take damage, I'd rather have that prepared. And plus, it gives no symbols on it at all. So it's a great card to actually get out of our skill deck. Whereas this one here makes sense to maybe put back on top because I can guarantee at least 1 success out of it if I use it. I could put it to the bottom, but we'll go like that. So Aragorn still benefits from his awesome ability, allowing him to do a Scout 3 all by himself. And there's Lead the Charge. Nice. Again, one I'm not going to probably prepare because I'm going to be burning all my successes, plus it's a duplicate. We got a Fate here for Ancient Wisdom. And this Fate we could potentially use in order to convert to a success. We could also prepare it when you test your Wisdom. It's very similar to the one we saw actually with Legolas just a few seconds ago. This is a basic card, so it's in both decks. And then Time of Need. Oh, Time of Need is so good. So basically Time of Need is when you test, if you do not reveal any successes, you may discard this skill to convert all your Fate to successes, and that's really cool. So I'm going to actually go ahead and do that because there might be a time, based on the fact that we don't have many successes in our deck, that this is a perfect card to have prepared. And now what I can do Now I could set myself up to try to have that happen. That's kind of the ironic thing about it. You could actually go ahead and try to put this fate on top in order to hope that this thing triggers and has a better chance by taking a success and putting it at the bottom of the deck. That's kind of silly though. I'm gonna actually keep the success on top because I'll probably end up using it when I interact with the person, and then maybe later on we'll see something else I can use it with. We'll see how it goes. We might end up keeping time of need for a later time. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty sure I want Aragorn to interact with this token to find out what happens. So Aragorn's going to start it off this time. Let's head to the app and find out what happens when he interacts with this person token. So we will interact with this person token right here. A young girl is wandering the area looking lost. Let's see if we can try to help her. We have multiple different options here. So you introduce yourself and ask if the girl is lost. She blinks up at you, fidgeting with her skirt. Are you lost? You can yell at her, are you lost, as if she can't hear you. It's okay, I only want to help. Or look for an adult. That is a good point too, because there could be an adult. It doesn't necessarily mean that the girl's actually lost, even though she looks lost. I'm gonna go ahead and probably just say, are you lost? Because I think that makes sense. This also kind of makes sense too. No, I'll do the are you lost. Let's see what happens with that. So I am literally speaking louder and slower. Speaking louder and slower, you try to make yourself understood. So I'm going to be going ahead and testing my might. I'm just looking for one success. So again, this is where you don't have to hope to succeed because we actually scouted and we know that we put a success on top. So when we go ahead and we do our might check, our might is going to be a 3. So we know the first was a success thanks to actually going ahead and putting them back in the deck this way. The next one should be a fate. Perfect. But we only need 1 anyway to pass this check, but you still need to pull all the cards. And too bad. But I guess here's a good note. The time of need now is a really good chance to trigger if I end up using it this turn somehow, which I don't know how that would pan out, but it might, because now we've actually spent 2 successes here and we have 2 prepped successes, I just noticed. So now we have 4, which means all of my successes are out of my deck, which means whatever, if I was to do a check during this particular round, another one, I could guaranteed use time of need as long as I get some fate tokens to actually convert, which would be cool. But anyway, so an absolute pass right here. And what's going to happen? Your voice booms out so loud that it nearly deafens even you, but the child simply smiles wide, imitating your enormous mouth, revealing a gap-toothed grin. She seems cheered and scampers off before you can try helping again. Gain 2 inspiration. Okay, so we made somebody happy, we got some inspiration there. That's not actually a bad thing, because Aragorn can handle having 2 extra inspiration. That's not terrible. So she is now off the game board. All right, so that was either a distraction or that's going to come back around at us later. I don't really know how that's going to pan out. Very interesting indeed. So we still have the ability to do another action with Aragorn, so let's find out what we should do. So as the app instructed, the person token is now removed, and we're going to gain 2 inspiration, which we'll place on Aragorn, bringing him up to a total of 3 inspiration. So we have 3 inspiration on Aragorn and 2 on Legolas, which is not bad. We're really set up for some good successes if we happen to battle anyone. Now we have to decide, what else do I do? Do I want to come over here and grab this treasure chest, which is kind of a distraction? I doubt there's going to be anything to do with tracks there. We just need to find 1 more track. So the question really becomes, I'm only connected to this small piece of land right here. I could also walk in there. That would help to reduce the threat. Regardless of reducing the threat, we know based on the calculation in the app that we're going to probably be pushing over into 25. Well, we will be for sure, because we're at 23 right now in threat. We have 2 heroes in play. That's 4 guaranteed threat. That'll push us to 25. So we will actually potentially have some enemies out here on the board soon. But you know what? It might be still worth it to head there. So let's go ahead and have Aragorn go there just so we can actually reveal it and find out if there's anything worthwhile. Plus I can move again afterwards. So I'll move in, we'll head to the app, we'll click on that and see what happens. Now I'm really hoping this ends up being useful for us. I mean, besides the fact we're definitely going to gain inspiration, which is great because that'll actually max out my inspiration. Peering through the brambles, you find a boggy lowland. A rustle of movement draws your attention to the bulrushes. Discard the exploration token and gain 1 inspiration. Okay. Here we go. Good. A patch of bulrushes may hide tracks. Perfect. Amid their stalks. Place a search token. This is exactly what I was hoping to find. Perfect. And he's in the right position for the next round as well. That's great. Okay, so we'll continue onwards. Yes. Perfect. All right, so that is going to conclude that. We'll put the search token in play and gain that inspiration token. So at this particular point, Aragorn is very inspired. He's fully maxed out in inspiration. And we also have to go ahead and put a search token in this location as well, which is perfect. So we'll put that right there. So this is where things get really interesting, because Legolas can go one of two ways here, and he could technically go a third way if he wants to be greedy and grab the chest. But the major way is he could go 1, 2, 3, 4, using 2 move actions to gain 4 movement points to get him inside of this, to reveal this, to basically reduce one of the threat we'll gain. But we have no idea what's over here, and we now know the tracks are likely right here, so him going to this spot may not be useful, although I'm sure there's something there. Or we decide to just hop over here and talk to these particular hobbits that have been here the entire time. We've completely ignored them. Kind of want to do that, seeing as they're like right there. So I'm gonna actually go for that and see what happens. So we're gonna go ahead and move 1 over here. We're gonna interact with the hobbits and see what they have to say. So we're gonna go ahead and interact with these hobbits right here. A short stretch of water here tumbles through rapids and over a waterfall. Several children are playing in the water. You are concerned for the safety of the children, but when you approach, they all produce hidden weapons? What the heck? Well, that's kind of aggressive. So we're going to have to test our wit. So this is certainly an interesting test. We're testing our wit, and we're testing it against a bunch of kids who have just pulled out a bunch of hidden weapons. So I don't know whether they're actually trying to hurt me or this is more of a joke and Legolas is just playing around with them, especially because we're using wit. Who knows how this is going to pan out. So we're going to go ahead and we're using our wit, which is 3. I don't have anything that's going to modify a wit. Unless, of course, we can use time of need, which I actually do have time of need prepared with Legolas too. So if I happen to get a whole bunch of fate icons, I can convert them all. But we need 2. So, look at that. There's 1. And I get 3 cards here. So, oh my gosh, I might actually need it. It really comes down. Okay, look at that. Perfect. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead. This is probably a terrible time to use this. And I'm going to go ahead right here. It says, when you test, if you do not reveal any successes, you may discard the skill to convert all fate 1, 2 to successes. So just like that, I have passed the test, even though I didn't, because I was using this in a time of need. Because there's no greater time of need than when a kid, and a bunch of kids, I should say, pull a bunch of hidden weapons on you. So we'll head back to the app and see how that turns out. All right, so we definitely passed this test, so here goes nothing. Convincing the children that you mean no harm, you compliment them on their quick reflexes. They in turn invite you to ride the rapids with them. Oh no, this could be... Ooh, that's a tough call. Yeah, sounds like fun until I hurt myself. Shoot. I'm so tempted. You have no idea how tempted I am to do this. You know what, Legolas, there's no enemies on the board, and you know, Aragorn's got everything handled down there with the tracks. He doesn't know that you're just goofing around. So you know, let's go. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. This is probably everything you shouldn't do. Yeah, there we go. The children give you a small barrel to ride down the river, and it is very difficult for you to keep the rickety thing afloat. However, you make it over the small waterfall safely and clamber out of the river to happy cheering. Flip 1 damage face up. Interesting. Now I have on Legolas the cursed card, which states, keep this card face up. When you would discard a face up damage, flip it face down. So it's not telling me to discard, it's saying flip a damage face up. So essentially that is kind of bad, because normally flipping one up would actually do something terrible to you, but I don't have any face down damage, so I can actually ignore that. Then it says gain 2 inspiration. So in essence, this actually still worked out for me perfectly, just based on the fact that I don't have my max inspiration and I didn't have any damage to flip. So that actually works really, really good. So I'll take it 2 inspiration. And that person token will disappear just like that. So we still technically have 1 move left with Legolas. So the question really becomes, maybe I just start kind of moving towards the chest. So I'll probably just move him from here to here. So the person token is now removed. We're also going to gain 2 inspiration tokens, which I'm going to place with Legolas. Legolas can have up to 5, and now he has 4. Aragorn is as max of 4, so we are really, really ready for battle now for sure. So all those person tokens actually really helped out. Of course, you have to be successful at the checks, but they did work out for us. I have 1 movement remaining with Legolas. I will move him to here. I do have the ability on Legolas, and this is something that's really cool. It says, once per round during your turn, you may spend 1 inspiration to move 1 space without provoking attacks. So I'm going to go ahead and spend it because it doesn't necessarily say you have to be in a space with an enemy to use it. It just simply states, you know, he basically has the ability thematically to get past enemies. So once per round during your turn, you may spend 1 inspiration to move 1 space without provoking attack. So I'm just going to go ahead and spend 1 inspiration so I can actually be in the space with this search token. And the provoking of attacks doesn't matter because there's no enemies. So I'm just simply using this to gain an additional movement and be in better position to make better use of my actions. That worked out pretty good. So that's going to do it. I think that is everything I want to do with both of those characters. And now comes the all-important shadow phase and likely a threat event. Actually, a guaranteed threat event. All right, you guys ready for this? I don't think I am. So here we go. We're saying it's the end of the round. We did pretty good. Got a lot of things cleared, but there's still much to do. Shadow phase. The shadow deepens, though hope yet endures. Threat increased by 5. Again, increases by 5, 2 for each hero, and the 1 for the unexplored token down there. An elderly crow perched in the shadow of a dying elm watches you with malicious intelligence. Its incessant cries grow louder and shriller until it erupts into flight and streaks over your head, followed by the cries of more dangerous foes. I don't like that. Place 3 goblin scouts on the indicated space. Oh my gosh, and I just slipped out of that space. That was crazy. That's really cool. So wow, that was good timing. Place 3 goblin scouts on the indicated space. All right, so I will be doing that. So we'll go ahead to the game board and drop 3 of them down. They don't show that they have any banner on them, so we're literally just putting a group of 3 out. So maybe the little ride down the river on the bucket wasn't such a good idea. Maybe it was a little noisy, attracted some attention. Really good news is that I used that extra movement, as I mentioned before, to get 1 space away from them, thankfully, because they could have been right on top of me. And Legolas can shoot 1 space across at these guys later on. So he knows they're coming, and he's going to be able to deal with them on his turn, hopefully, as long as they don't have any more actions here going through the shadow phase. The bonus is, too, is I can interact with this particular token, the search token, because there's no enemies in there. If there was an enemy ever in the same zone as you, and you either try to move out or you try to interact with a token when there's an enemy inside there, you do what's called a provoke action, which we talked about earlier, which is clicking that provoke button right beside the shelf or track of all the enemies in the app, and you basically just specify to the app, hey, you're going to trigger a provocation of that particular, of an enemy essentially, and you got to basically just pass that test, and if you're still alive, you can then continue on with your action. But it's not always fun to do so, and of course you're hurting yourself in most cases. All right, so they're throwing the hordes at us, and let's see what else. Oh my gosh, there's more? So a ruffian is coming in. He's coming in way, way, way at the beginning too. That's crazy. So I guess 1 ruffian is coming in way up top. So 1 ruffian has been placed way up north and will likely be coming south to greet us very soon. So the ruffian is on the board now. We can continue forwards. Back into a rally phase, you can see the event, the threat event has moved up, and each hero resets their deck and scouts too. Again, our heroes are so far apart that Aragorn will be the only one that gets to benefit from the Scout 3, and we certainly have a lot more going on the board than we did earlier. Okay, so Legolas will go ahead and scout first, and we got ourselves light-footed, so when you interact with a search or threat token before you test, you may discard this skill to test your agility instead and Scout 1, or you can sprint. That sounds like a really good thing to have right now to get away from this group and potentially get closer to Aragorn, who can maybe give me some backup. Oh, that seems really tempting. Plus it's a success though, so it's a hard choice. The next one is tireless. At the end of your turn, you may discard this skill to perform an action you have not performed this turn. Not as well. It could be good because it could let me pick up or interact with the search token if I just do 2 attacks. That's a tough call. So I guess the really big question is, guys, and you can always check this in the app because this app is freely available to be able to check into. We can actually take a look at what the damage is on these particular scouts, and we're able to know this. So we can go in the app in the tray there and actually click on each of the different sets of enemies to find out what their HP is. We can get a rough idea as to how we want to strategically set our skill deck to try to take down as many of these guys as possible. I have got a plan, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to definitely take tireless and put it down below. I think with the amount of inspiration I have here, I'm going to be able to pull off killing 2 of them and then getting the heck out of there. So I'm going to definitely put this success on top. I'd love to actually prep this one, but I'm going to put it on top so I can guarantee myself at least one. I'm going to try to get the benefit of when I attack of using the great bow for both abilities. Now, one of the things to note, guys, in combat, especially when you have like 3 enemies, I now know based on looking at the app that each of the enemies are worth 4 HP each. There are 3 HP technically and 1 armor. So essentially 4, 4, and 4. And so I'm going to need a lot of damage to actually take them all down, but I think I can make 2 happen, and we'll talk about it more when the attack happens, but I just want to let you guys know you can only ever use an ability on, so if I'm using the great bow and I'm pulling for an attack and I got a bunch of, say I got 3 successes total, or say I have 4 successes, better example, I can spend 1 of the successes to get 2 hits, 2 of the successes to get 5 hits. You would think you could use the other success to gain another 2 hits, but you can't. Once you've actually used a particular weapon for each row on here in terms of abilities, that's all you can use during that attack. You can't just stack it and keep using it. So I couldn't get 4 successes and go, oh, I'll just do 1 success, 1 success, 1 success, 1 success, which will give me 8 hits. It doesn't work like that. You can only use each row of this particular weapon 1 time during an attack. So it's definitely good to know when you're strategizing how many hits and how much damage you're trying to put onto a group of enemies. All right, so Aragorn will now go ahead and scout 3. So I have Unyielding Spirit. I haven't seen Spirit tests as much in this one, so that's probably not one I'll prep. This one is Gift of Men. During your turn, you may discard this skill to discard 1 fear. That's good. So if I wanted to actually get rid of one of my fear, it's not a bad idea. If I have nothing else to use, it might be worth it, but it does come with a cost of 2 fate on it, which is pretty heavy. That could be actually really useful for using inspiration. When you test, oh, this is better. When you test your might, you may discard this skill to add 1 success. I'm going to keep this because the actual check that we were doing, if I remember correctly last time, where he currently is on the interaction token for the search token, is it used might, and this will guarantee me a success. So I'll prep that one. That'll give me a total of 4 prep skills. I'll put Gifted Men on top so we can guarantee we could actually use it to gain ourselves some great success with this. And maybe what I'll do is risk it and send the second one to the back so that I hope to get maybe one of the, oh, well, I guess my odds are pretty low because I have 2 successes there. But let's just see what happens. So I'll put the Gifted Men on top and I'll put the Unyielding Spirit below. Still guarantees me 2 successes if I set it up like that. So that's pretty good. Oh, 2 and 3 if it actually has to do with might. So that's pretty good either way. Okay, so we're all set up for that, and now we can actually go ahead with our turns. Who is going to go first? So I think just based on the chaos that Legolas has going on around him, I think we need to have him go first and just see how he can handle what's going on here. So he is going to make an attack against these guys. He's going to be using his bow as he has before, which is his agility, which is going to give him 4 cards. I do have the immortality prepped card, which allows me to add 2 hits to an attack I'm making, or I could rest. So it's one of those things where I'm not sure if I want to add it to the attack or not in order to take out a unit, but if it ends up helping me take out an additional unit, I might use it. We'll see how it goes. So we're making an attack here with agility, and we're going to flip 4 cards. We already know what some of them are going to be. So we got a success off the top, which is great. Another success. That's fantastic. This is the one I didn't know I would get. This one I don't know what it would have been either, but there's a fate which I can convert, so that's fantastic. And then lastly, another fate. Awesome. So that worked out really good. So what we can do now is decide how we want to apply a number of hits here. Remember, each of these guys are worth 4 each in order to take them out. So currently on my great bow, if I wanted to go ahead and start applying hits here, success-wise, I could use 2 successes to actually gain 5 hits, which would kill 1 technically, and also give me 1 additional hit to put on another guy. I'd only need 3 more to take him down. So if I go ahead and I choose to take 1 of these and use an inspiration token, it would give me a success, giving me 2 more hits, which would bring this guy down in total 3 damage down, and he'd only need 1 more damage to be taken out. So that's kind of where it's interesting because, again, as I mentioned before, I can't use these line items anymore on this card, and that's where I have to decide, is it worth it to discard Immortality to get the Strike 2, which basically says that I can go ahead when you attack and add 2 hits. I think I might do it because it really clears things up. So I'm going to go ahead and discard that one, which will knock out this guy. Now, when 2 hits get added on, 1 will hit him, killing him. We'll see this in the app in a second. The other hit's going to hit him, but it's going to hit his armor, which means essentially we'll tell the app that it's going to hit the armor, and you'll see it when we do it in the app, but it's going to regenerate anyway, because armor always comes back unless you use a special ability to basically destroy it or break it in some way. So, but at the end of the day, two down is pretty solid. It's a good double shot from Legolas, classic 2-arrow right through the head on both of them. So very, very effective. And that was just technically one attack. I still have another attack, so I could potentially take them all out, which would be crazy. So first off, let's go to the app and let the app know what we have done for this attack, because there might be, and there should be, a counter attack, being that there's one left, which is going to be unfortunate, but worth it in the end. So coming back to the app here, we'll click on the Goblin Scouts, and we know that we applied a bunch of damage to these guys. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, killing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, killing another one, and then just 1 off of this one. So as you can see, it just took away that armor. This is what I was talking about earlier. There's still 3 health, which means it's going to basically gain that back, unless we were using something like this, like Pierce or something that would just... Pierce would actually jump past the armor, so you don't even have to take that 1 hit and waste it there. I believe Sunder might be the one that breaks armor, and I believe Gimli has that on his axe. But we aren't playing with Gimli right now, so we don't have that ability. And maybe in a future upgrade on our weapons, we'll have Sunder. But there's also other ones here too. So we'll apply this, see what happens. 9 hits is pretty solid. And we're moving 2 Goblin Scouts, which we will do. I've already knocked them over. And can the enemy attack? Yes, it can, because there is... Legolas is in... actually, no, sorry. The question actually becomes, can the enemy attack? And it can't. Because technically the enemy is not in the same space as Legolas, because Legolas made a ranged attack. So the enemy can't attack because it doesn't have a range icon on the symbol down here. So we actually put no here. This is where the app is going to probably do something different with it, or maybe nothing at all. Ha! Nothing happens. Fantastic. And this again is because of the fact that Legolas is doing things from range, which is huge. So when I said it was a guarantee, I forgot about the fact that, again, if it's not in the same space and it doesn't have range, it can't make the shot from this area to this area. So that's fantastic. So we can do one more action of Legolas. We might as well nail that last one and take out that entire group, which would be fantastic. All right, so those 2 are going to be removed and taken out of the game, and Legolas has now the ability to go ahead and attack again. So I'm going to do exactly that. Let's attack. So here we go. We're going to flip, and it's 4 cards again using agility. Hopefully we get the successes we need. So there's a fate. We can turn fate into successes based on all the inspiration that I've been storing up. Oh my gosh, that is a ton of fate. It looks like we're going to be spending fate for sure if we want to actually do enough damage to kill this thing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend the last 2 fate that Legolas has to convert 2 of them to successes, and then use the 2 successes to get 5 hits, which is mass overkill and takes out the last guy perfectly. So Legolas, you are a beast. You just ripped through that group like they were nothing. It feels really cool on a turn to absolutely devastate a group like that. It's so awesome. And again, obviously having the inspiration built out helped me. If I hadn't have done the things that I did and hadn't had the time to, or hadn't have completed things the way I did, I wouldn't have had the ability to do what I just did. So it was really cool to see that pan out. So we're going to go ahead to the app now, let it know that we've taken it out, and we might gain an inspiration because the entire group is gone. Hopefully we do. All right, so let's let the app know that we have taken out this Goblin Scout. So we'll attack it, and we definitely did 5 hits, which is overkill, but I put all 5 in regardless, even if it's overkill. Just let the app know. Confirm, and yes, we do get an inspiration. Awesome. So Legolas won't be walking away with 0 at least. So that's perfect, and that group is now off the map. And the great thing about this, guys, is remember that prep card that I put for Legolas that allowed him to go ahead and take another action after he's gone ahead and attacked? I'm going to use that right now. I'm going to discard that prep card, and he's going to be able to interact, because as long as I'm doing an action that wasn't already done during his 2 actions, I can do it. So I can do this search token. So we're going to go ahead, interact with this thing. It says a large chest is concealed in this patch of shadows, kept safe by a sturdy but corroded lock. So we're going to search. Oh my gosh, that is a really harsh test. So we got to test our might, and we got to get 3, and we've burnt majority of our inspiration. So this is going to be really tough to do. So we really don't want to forget about the inspiration token that we just gained from taking out that group. So that's good because Legolas might need it right now. And we're doing a might test, and I just realized that Legolas's might is 2. So the chances of this actually working out is almost 0. Now we also have to make sure we discard the tireless card that I used in the first place that stated at the end of the turn. You may discard this skill to perform an action that you have not performed. And I had not performed an interaction. So this is gone too because I wouldn't be able to interact with it without doing that. This is interesting. So what we can do now is not too much. I don't really know if this is going to pan out just because of his... I didn't realize might would be what is required. This is probably a better thing for Aragorn to try and grab. But we'll go ahead and test it anyway. Oh my gosh, we got Time of Need. Oh, that was like the one card we needed if we had the inspiration, because guess what? This is... I wouldn't be surprised if it's another Fate. Oh no, it's not. It's Misled. So even... that's the worst. So if we had the inspiration, it would have been so exciting to be able to spend it there, and then hopefully this card wouldn't have been misled. But either way, that is a fail for sure. We did not get what we need, and I'm not going to burn an inspiration token to turn that to a success for no good reason. Let's let the app know that Legolas is not strong enough to open a corroded lock. So that test came out to be a complete fail, but we will continue on here. So you give the lock a few half-hearted thumps, but it seems pretty solid and your arms grow tired before you can even leave a mark. It's kind of sad, actually. So after taking down all the enemies that he did, he just didn't have the steam in him to be able to crack that lock. Just too much going on in that one time frame. So Legolas, regardless of failing to get this lock, did a fantastic job of clearing out all of those bad guys. Now we only have to worry about this one guy that's up here. If we want to know more about him, because we haven't looked at it yet, he's a 5 damage enemy. So when he does get down to us, when the shadow phase eventually pushes him down here, we'll have him to deal with as well. But I'm not going to really stick around all that long to find out. We're far enough away from him that I think we're safe. We're 1, 2, 3 away. So I don't think he'll move 3. But we'll see. I hope not, because he's up here. So we're going 1, 2, and then currently where Legolas is sitting. Oh, sorry, he's actually up here. He's up here. So we'd be going 1, 2, 3 to get to Legolas, which is unlikely. But we're going to go ahead with Aragorn now, who's going to interact with this token. We definitely want to try to succeed at this, because this is the last track needed. So a patch of bulrushes may hide tracks amid their stalks. All right. So we're going to test this. Your first steps are arduous and leave your feet caked with thick mud. We're testing our might. Okay, so Aragorn's might should be decent at least. Let's go do this test and see what we can pull off. Now, one last thing I want to do, guys, before I finish here is it does state here on Legolas's prepped area he has a card called Resourceful, and I want to use this right now. It says at the end of your turn, you may discard this skill to gain 1 inspiration or scout 1. I'm going to choose it to gain inspiration at this point because scouting 1 would be absolutely useless for me. So we're going to gain 1 inspiration, and I just want to catch that before I continue on with Legolas, or with Aragorn's turn. So Legolas does have 2 inspiration now and literally no prep cards whatsoever. So with Aragorn here in this space, wanting to interact with that token, the one thing that Aragorn does have is this card called Undying Might. I prepped it earlier. It says when you test your might, you may discard this card to, or this skill card to add 1 success. So we have a guaranteed success out of the gates, which is great. So we're going to use that for sure. We'll go to the deck. We're going to flip 3 cards. I have 4 inspirations, so I should be able to pull this off. And that certainly helps. So I forgot about that. We put that at the very top. So Gift of Men, that's going to allow me the ability to definitely help in this test. Oh, nice. A success. Okay, good. I forget if that one was set by me or that's random. I forget there. And this is the 3rd one. So, okay, this is good, though, because I have 1 success here, another success here. I really don't want to mess around too much. I want to make sure that I actually succeed at this. So I'm not going to go crazy, but I'll put 2 inspiration in because I currently have 4. I'm already at my max, and that will give me 4 successes total. So 1 for this card, 1 for this card because it was a prep card that I'm discarding, and I'm spending 2 fate to convert 2 of these to successes for a total of 4. Let's head to the app and see if that's enough. So 4 successes should be pretty good. That's the famous last words, but hopefully he did enough last time that this works out. Nice. Pushing aside tall reeds, you locate deep tracks in the mud. Items of armor and a shield, a large shield, have been cast off, discarded by desperate travelers as they sank into the bog. Their escape left a clear path. However, you note the direction. Gain 1 inspiration. Perfect. So I get that inspiration back that I used to kind of go a little bit bonkers in terms of getting successes. And then it says discard the token, which we will do. I'm guessing. Oh, look at this, guys. We found it, I think. I think that was the last track we needed. So it says, at last you have located the hidden lair of your enemy. Nestled in an old ruin, faint silhouettes of orc sentries dot its high ruined towers, and you see more movement within. Aware of your nearness, they scramble to ready a defense. For you, all that remains is to devise a way in without their notice, before these defenses are prepared. Lore increases by 1. Place a search token as indicated. This is exciting. So we have, this is probably going to change the actual objective up top now, because I'm guessing that we just found the last track. That gets us to the lair, which just sounds like the major plot point right now, which is good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. We'll see what happens here. Yes, final objective, infiltrate the lair. Awesome. So that is our goal. With the knowledge of your destination, you observe outposts and patrols that until now were hidden from your notice. Okay, so this does not sound good, and it's likely going to result in probably some bad things happening. Oh, right there? 3 of them. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're going to have 3 ruffians. Is that going to be right between us? It is going to be right between us. It's going to be between Legolas and Aragorn. That's craziness. Okay, so 3 ruffians are going to show up right here. So let's head to the game board and deal with the inspiration, the ruffians, and the new search token. So first and foremost, Aragorn gains an inspiration. Congratulations, Aragorn. You now have 3 inspiration. And we also have a new search token, which is placed on the game board for the lair. And if I'm correct, it sits right here, which is not too far away. But what also isn't very far away is 3 ruffians, which have shown up right in between us. And thankfully we have a character with range who can shoot at them, but these guys are looking to go after all of us, I'm sure. So they're all set up on the game board. Let's head back to the app, see if anything else comes out. Now there is a banner with this one because there was a ruffian, and still is, way up here north. So we got to find the correct banner that the actual app mentioned, but these guys are not elite. They're still just considered regular units, so they just use this regular banner right here. So as you can see in the app here, there's the banner icon that I was talking about. If you ever see it, it'll also show up down here in the portrait to let you know to place one. And it usually does at any time there's duplicates of the same type of individual in terms of a miniature on the board, but usually there's differences between them too. So just because the picture looks a certain way doesn't mean that their actual characteristics are the same. There's different loadouts for each of these guys. And then when there's elite, they actually have spikes on top, which will use these spiked banners as well at times. So anyway, we're going to continue on, see what else is coming at us. Oh my gosh, we got a goblin scout, which is going to show up right here. So I will do that in a second. We'll continue onwards. That is the end. Okay, so we got 1 goblin scout just sitting at the entrance, kind of wondering what is going on. So we'll place him in. The scout is now in position right next to the lair that we're trying to get to, and Aragorn still has an action to spend, but I can't do any attacking. The only thing I can really do is just move at this point because I don't have ranged. So I'm just going to probably throw myself into the pile of those 3 enemies right there, because at least if I'm nearby to Legolas, I can help him scout 3 for the next round, which will potentially help us take all of them out. I hope, fingers crossed. This is going to be quite a wild battle. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Aragorn into the fold. He's just saying, the heck with it, I'm going in, and all these guys are just like, thank you very much. We are going to beat you to a pulp. And they all recognize that he is there. So that's going to be it. I have 1 more movement I could spend, but I'm certainly not leaving that spot and provoking an attack. That would be absolutely silly. So that is where I'm going to stop my turn, and we are going to end it. So we're going to head back to the app. We're going to go into a shadow phase, and this could be scary. So we're going to go ahead and begin the shadow phase, which I really don't want to see right now because it's probably going to hurt us quite badly. Move to and attack Aragorn. This is going to be for the group. Okay, so this is actually for the individual that's way, way, way up top. So I'm not even going to go to the game board because he's technically way up here. And he can't move to be here or to any close hero. So in these cases, when no one's around that he can actually go after, there's no target, and it'll change this actually. So what ends up happening is you don't do this If it's a no target, you don't do this and then hit no target. You just don't do this at all. And another instruction will come up when you hit no target. See? Ruffian is set on hemming you in, so move 4 spaces towards the closest hero. So that he can do. Now it's just move, it's not attack. So that's going to take him from here. 1, 2, 3, and I think that will get him in a space with Legolas. But he's not going to attack, but he'll be right in the fold with everybody else, which is really unfortunate. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll move that into position, but I'll continue onwards for now. The next group here, this whole group actually is going to leave. Well, this is actually quite a very interesting situation, but this one does say it's going to move to and attack Legolas or closest hero. So these guys are going to leave Aragorn alone, even though Aragorn is in their space. They're going to move 1 space over and attack Legolas because they can actually action this command. And then we'll have to hit attack. So let's go to the game board and change the couple things that have moved around, which is really just the enemies, and we'll come back and do an attack. So the ruffian way up here had to move 4, so 1, 2, 3 to get to the closest hero, which is Legolas. And then this entire group literally has a move 2 to attack Legolas. So all of them are going to pile into his space. So he's got some serious issues right now as he's literally completely surrounded. I'll just put the banner behind there. That's pretty wild, actually. So we just got to remember there's 3 for that 1 banner, which I'll kind of clump to one side, and then 1 guy off on his own. And then Aragorn now, even though he moved over here, is left all alone. So I'm going to end up having to burn another movement just to get over there, which is really unfortunate, or potentially go after the scout or something. So the strategy of this has changed, but I still have to now have an attack against Legolas, which I'm really not looking forward to. Okay, so they are definitely going to make the attack to Legolas, and oh, that's a lot of damage. A man unsheathes a huge sword and attacks, and it's going to be my might that negates. Oh my goodness, that is brutal. That is a lot of damage. A lot of damage. Okay, we're going to have to head back and see how much we can negate here, but that is going to hurt. That's going to hurt quite a bit. All right, so that is a lot. That is a lot of damage. So 3 damage and 2 fear. That's a pretty aggressive hit. And obviously because it's coming from the group that is the banner group, it's probably why it's such a heavy attack. So that's crazy. We're gonna have to thin their numbers a little bit if we want to avoid that again in the future. So I have nothing I can do. I'm totally out of prepared cards for Legolas. So at this point, we're just pulling cards from the skill deck to hope to block and negate. We're using our might, which only allows me to draw 2 cards. So here we go. And there's actually only 2 in the deck. So, okay, we got a success. Not bad, not bad. We'll take that. That's 1 negates, please. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? I had 2 successes at the bottom. That couldn't have worked out better. Now, at the end of the day, I still had 2 inspiration tokens, but I burnt my entire skill deck. I think this might be the first time I've gone through it in the full game round. I might have shuffled once before, but I think this is the first time. But again, you only ever shuffle your skill deck and replenish during a round if you actually are required to pull cards you don't have. So right now I've just discarded my entire skill deck. That's pretty much how it sits. Now this is still not that successful because it only negates 2 either fear or damage, or I can mix and match a little bit there. So I get a choice. So I really have to, it really comes down to how I want to manage things. Now, first off, my fear total limit for Legolas is 6. I have 1 fear on him. So I would prefer to probably take the 2 fear, and I have to take it face up, which is unfortunate. I don't know what that's going to do. And then we have to go ahead and take, I can negate 2 of the damage, which I'd prefer to do because damage could kill me, and just take 1 damage. So it's, so we'll see how this goes. So it's going to be 1 damage and 2 fear is what I'm going to take. So let's take the damage, and it's all face up to start here. So let's see, damage. Oh no, I got poisoned. Gain 1 weakness and shuffle it into your deck. Then discard this card. Well, there you go. If you're ever told to shuffle your deck and you don't have any cards to shuffle in, you're going to have to shuffle your discard pile in. So how this works essentially is you've got a weakness deck, which is right here, which is a whole bunch of cards. Does not matter which one you pull, so you can simply pull from the top. It's literally just a representation of something that's absolutely terrible. So in this case, an omen, which makes perfect sense. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab this and we'll put it into my deck, and I'm going to literally shuffle this in. And then this card's discarded. Now that's the good news. The good news is it just messed up my skill deck a little bit, and I don't actually keep the damage itself. So in a way it's good because damage is kind of the weakness for Legolas. So That couldn't have worked out better, I guess, in a way, but now my skill deck is a little less useful. So with that out of the way, now we have to pull 2 fear. So here's the first fear. Okay, that looks bad. Rage. This one says, keep this card face up. You cannot prevent damage, including negate tests. When you attack, add 2 hits. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. So I'm just so scared that I'm going to lose my mind here a little bit and just go crazy because I'm so angry. Sure. Yep. I could see him being very enraged at this point, being surrounded by these guys. So that's very thematic and very cool. Second one is overcome. Oh my God. These are so perfect for what's going on right now. This one says suffer 1 face down fear. Okay, that's not good. Then flip this. Oh, so it forces me to take another fear. That's no good. That pushes me. Oh my goodness. So suffer 1 face down fear. So I'm going to take another face down fear from the deck. And then this particular card flips face down. So if you want to sum up of what I've got here, I've got 1 fear face up. It's called Rage. It's going to give me the ability to add 2 hits, but it's going to prevent me from stopping damage. And I technically have 3 face down fear now, plus the 1 fear that's face up. So I have a total of 4 fear and my limit is 6. So I'm a little scared, but I can see why. I'm totally surrounded and honestly it could have gone worse. So I'm just gonna count my lucky stars that I'm not doing a last stand. So that is that. That was quite wild. Let's go back to the app and confirm that that has been dealt with. So we'll go ahead here and we're gonna confirm this because it definitely happened, and please. Oh, another one's coming after Legolas. He's just getting dogpiled. So we have the goblin scout that's going to move to now and attack. Oh my goodness. And he can do this. So again, you have to be able to complete the actual move too, which this scout can, to be in the pile. Literally every enemy in the board is on Legolas right now. He needs some serious help. And the crazy thing is I have a prepped card for Aragorn where he can guard against attacks. So I need to get him in there to be able, and I need to get him in there and start swinging like a crazy person because we are in some serious trouble if we cannot thin this pile of enemies in the next round, because this can't happen again. So let's do an attack here and see what kind of damage the scout's going to do to me. Okay, it's not as bad, but see, this is where it kicks you. It's going to say, like, after this attack, if you are in darkness, flip 2. Right now we're not in darkness. Darkness tokens, there's the specific ones. There's 5 of them, I believe, in the box. There will be times where the game will tell you that every tile's in darkness and you don't need to put tokens down. It's just every tile has darkness on it. And these are the types of things where darkness can come into play and make you more scared. It basically amps up the fear in the game, essentially, for your guys. So that's never fun. So the scout has moved 2 spaces to get into the dogpile mentality that's going on here with Legolas. He's just getting absolutely hammered. He's going to be using his spirit to negate. Now this is negating of wounds, which goes back to the rage card that we got earlier that says you cannot prevent damage, including negate tests. So I have to take this. Now, I just told you guys we had a chance to actually try and block this, and it should be easy, but I don't. The rage card specifically states I don't even get to test it. It literally just hits me, which is very unfortunate. So, being that it is what it is and I can't do anything about it, I have to take 1 face-up damage. Now, I have 1 cursed injury on me, so hopefully this isn't bad. Okay, so we got weariness. As I mentioned before, this is one of the most common damage cards in the deck, but we flip it face down. So now I have, so you guys are aware of what I got here, 2 damage total. 1 of them is face up for fear, and my limit is 4. And then on the fear side of things, I've got 4 in total. 1 is face up, 3 are face down, and my fear maximum is 6. All right, so we're gonna go ahead here and hit confirm. The shadow deepens, though hope yet endures. Threat increases by 5. It's ticking its way up to 40. Okay, so we get a little bit of a breather here. We're in the rally phase. So we're going to go ahead now. We're going to go ahead and reset our decks and scout. We're within range of each other, so we each get 3. And then we're going to actually end the video right here. And I know it's a cliffhanger for sure, but this one has gone on quite some time, and we definitely covered a ton of ground. So I'm really excited to come back, and we'll continue our journey. But first, let's go ahead and scout. All right, Legolas, let's see what happens here. So we're going to go ahead and scout 3. Hope for the best. Immortality, nice. Okay, good. That helps a little bit, gives us a little bit of a breather. That's kind of a card I wanted to see. That's bad. So there's the weakness that we just pulled. Classic that had come out right there. And then tireless. Oh, there's not even a success in there. Okay, so obviously the one I need to keep in order to make sure that Legolas can make it through is going to be this. Plus it gives me a strike, so it kind of works either way. So I'm definitely preparing that card. We're going to definitely take the Omen card, fire it to the back of the deck, and honestly fire tireless to the back of the deck as well. We'll make sure the Omen's at the very, very back though. The last card in this deck. And that is it for Legolas. And again, I got to prepare 3 because I am adjacent to Aragorn. And we're finally going to end it off with Aragorn scouting. We're going to get clever wit. When you test your wit, you may discard the skill to add a success. Nice. That's not nice. Watched, so that's always good. That kind of feels like how I feel about this game currently, that I'm being watched. Everything, it's funny because we got weaknesses on both of our characters there this time around. Oh, this is a good one. This is the sprint one, and that could, oh, that's perfect. So I could use this. This is perfect. So I have 3 cards prepared. I'm going to prepare this one. This will allow me the beginning, because during my turn, anytime I can discard this card to sprint one, and I can get Aragorn in that dog pile with Legolas in order to do 2 attacks, which would be huge. And then I've got all these other things going on here, like this one here, lead the charge. After you attack, you may discard this skill to gain inspiration, and for a nearby hero to gain an attack. Like all this stuff that I finally have sitting in my prepared row, plus all this inspiration. I think Aragorn's going to turn into an absolute monster in the next one and really save Legolas, because Legolas has been doing a lot of the work. I think it's time for Aragorn to step it up. So watch will go to the bottom of the deck, and I think for clever wit, tempted to leave it on top because I can use an inspiration for it. It guarantees me another success. So I might do that. I might actually leave it on top. So we'll flip it over and put it right on top like that. And that's going to do it for the scouting. So that is going to wrap up The Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth part number 2. Join me as we go into part number 3 to find out whether Legolas can fight his way out of this immense pile of orcs and goblins, and Aragorn can hopefully come over and help, and then we can actually head into the lair, which I'm really excited to do, and show you guys how the game changes when you move into the battle maps, which are really, really cool. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.